Hello, Comp 1. What's behind me is probably the least interesting setting that I've offered for you in this little series of video lessons about rhetoric, trying to give you some rhetorical training. It's just a blackboard, and you can't really see where I am. But I'm down here at the College of St. Benedict at my other teaching job. I teach 4 classes up at Central Lakes College, and I teach just 1 class here that runs a year long called the Rhetoric of Literature. My Johnnies and Bennies have all left. It's about 4 o'clock. 10 minutes ago they abandoned me. And I think once in a while I'm going to have to use this blackboard to do a little bit of teaching and help you see things visually. My handwriting is not very good. My art is just terrible. But once in a while I'm going to need to resort to either using a blackboard here or a whiteboard up at our school, Central Lakes College, to help you understand things. So let me just do a little bit of scratching. It's not too long ago at Central Lakes College that I was up there with my 3 face-to-face classes, and I was asking them an important question. And the question is this: when someone is speaking, i.e. a voice, a reader, a writer or a speaker, and someone is listening, maybe a reader or a hearer, who's responsible for telling the truth? Is it the voice's responsibility for telling the truth? Or is it the audience's responsibility for perceiving the truth? It's kind of an either-or thing, right? It's kind of a dualism to force you to think one or the other. And I know you're thinking, well, they both have an obligation. The voice has an obligation to tell the truth, and the audience has the obligation to understand the truth as they perceive it. We kind of work together, and we're all trying to be honest, although we all know how hard that is. What I want to do for a while, actually for a few lessons here, is to begin to build, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking well, a model for helping you think about rhetoric. Generally, in all communication situations, and this is in every rhetoric textbook, it's in every speech communication textbook that you can pick up, when any kind of communication is going on, this is the deal. Some voice is communicating something about a subject to an audience. And this is famously known as the communication triangle or the rhetorical triangle. It's best to think about it as elastic. In other words, these distances can change. I'm thinking of my face-to-face students. When I met them on the first day, for a split second up at Central Lakes College, like these students who were here a little while ago, they feared and respected me. Well, now that's all shot to hell, because bit by bit, we're becoming familiar with one another, and most of them are seeing me as someone harmless who bids them only goodwill, right? So this distance is narrowing. When I first met them, the distance was far, and as we work together, the distance gets closer. Same thing with the distance between a voice and a subject. For me, when I'm talking about English, history, philosophy, things in the humanities, the distance is really close, because I'm comfortable and familiar and trained and educated to think in those ways. This is not a physics room. I couldn't teach physics or math or chemistry or biology. Between me and those subjects, the distance is really far. Same thing with you as an audience, hearing something about a subject. Most of my English students are comfortable up there at Central Lakes College in my face-to-face classes because they've had English before. It's not that difficult a subject, it really is not. However, I know some students that are taking biology up there, and they're finding it really a challenge. The distance between them and that subject, it's far, it's distant. And like I wrote you, speakers have an ethos. All speakers, all writers have an ethos. The ethos consists of 3 things, according to the ancients. The first thing that you need if you want to be a speaker or a writer about a given topic or subject is knowledge. You need to know what you're talking about. They also believed that a speaker should be good, not just good at speaking, but morally good, ethically good. The third thing, the third attribute that a voice needs for the ancients, and this is right out of Aristotle's Rhetoric again, is goodwill. Knowledge, goodness, and goodwill make someone able to speak in public. Like I wrote you, I really do believe in these things. I try to know what I'm talking about. I want to be a good person. I mean, I got an interest in that. Who doesn't? What thoughtful person doesn't? And I also try to show people goodwill, even when they're mean to me, okay? Now, this is pretty simple. And this is the ethos that we're talking about. It's as old as the hills. I've got one, you've got one, everyone's got one. This is the persuasive appeal that swirls around the voice. There's a different persuasive appeal that centers on the audience. And that famously is called pathos. From this word, ethos, you'll see our modern word ethics. Not quite a clean translation. In the word pathos, you might recognize the word empathetic or pathetic. Who would want to be called that? But this actually refers to emotions. I'm not going to give you a lot of training on this. I'm simply not. We need a little training, ethos-wise. But when you're making an appeal that's centered on the audience, I don't need to teach you how to push anyone's buttons. Everyone in this course, rhetorically, knows how to make a given audience feel pissed off. You know the limited array of emotions that we have. And as a writer or a speaker, rhetorically, you can make anyone feel that. We all know how to make people feel angry, sad, indignant, outraged, happy, jealous, and so forth. When you do that as a writer, particularly, you are making a pathos-centered appeal. Now, I'm no logician, but around the subject, swirling around the subject, is a thing called logos. And you must recognize the modern word that we get from that, and it's logic. Okay? Logic is something I know a little bit about, maybe a thimble's worth. And I will give you a little bit of training there. We want to be able to argue from causes, cause-effect. We want to be able to do that. We want to be logical. But these are really the three appeals. This is kind of the biggest thing going in rhetoric. You've got to understand this. Ethos-centered appeals are about the voice, and it consists of knowledge, goodness, and goodwill. We also make an emotional appeal, sometimes centering on the audience, and every once in a while we'll try to hold up a subject and say, look how logical this is. Look how logical and rational and pragmatic this is if you see this in this way. And you need to very much, definitely, try to keep these in balance when you're engaged in argumentation. The next story, or the next part that I've got to tell you that I almost forgot to tell you, is that in 5th century Athens, there were two schools of rhetoricians. On one end, there was a group of people called the Socratics, led by a wonderful Greek who was a saint to me named Socrates. Let's get the truth back in here again. The Socratics argued that a voice should tell the truth no matter what, even if it costs you your life. The Socratics said, speak the truth and try to get to it, get to the bottom of things. Meanwhile, kind of on the other side of the tracks, even though I don't vilify them like I used to, we had a group of thinkers called sophists. And the sophists were a completely different school of rhetoric. These guys said, you can't know the truth. You can only have the opinion of the truth. You can't know anything, you've only got opinions. And besides, everything's relative, according to these guys. The Socratics taught their students in 5th century Athens, be honest, use right rhetoric, argue well, even if you lose. The sophists, meanwhile, they were really dangerous. Those guys said, hey, if the audience falls for a lie that the voice tells, too bad for them, right? It's their problem. They're, as we would say, suckers. The sophists said to themselves and to their students, do what is necessary to win an argument. If you have to lie, cheat, distort, flatter, withhold the truth, be ironic, be distracting, whatever it takes, even if it's the kitchen sink, throw it at the audience. And if they fall for it, it's their lookout. I admire these people. I'm nervous about these people. And even though I try to be Socratic, everybody's got an inner sophist. We just talked about that at my Central Lakes College. If you've gotten through the last few days without telling a lie, I don't know, put up your hand. I can't really see it, but it's just not that easy. We're all trying to tell the truth, but we all have this within us. And in my next lesson, I'll be covering that. Sorry it's kind of boring, you know, just me in a classroom talking. This is sort of my life, talking to people and scratching on a board with figures, crazy drawings, and I'll end with a smiley face emoticon. See you in the next lesson.